tuned into the most unpredictable podcast on the World Wide Web.
It's about to shut it down.
It's Loud, hosted by Karen Howell.
Down. Hey.
Across all major platforms, and you are locked in.
You are locked in.
You know what it is. Pour up a glass of wine, ladies. Let the Henny flow, fellas. And get ready to turn the fuckery up to lit status. It's Karen Howell live on Say It Loud Radio on your favorite internet platform, streaming live.
It is another episode of Say It Loud. I love Fridays and I love Say It Loud. This week in the hot seat is the CEO is the CEO, right? We going big money 2021. It's the CEO and host of Black Men Cry Too, Catherine B. Thank you, Catherine, for joining me in the hot seat this week. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for putting me in the hot seat. It feels nice and toasty. I feel comfortable here.
It's a nice space. It's a nice 82 degrees here. We love everybody. I was just telling Catherine that so Catherine has a podcast called Black Men Cry Too, and I was doing my research and not minding my business per usual, and I came across your podcast and your platform, and I was so impressed that I was like, I need to get you on the show because I need to create a space where people know what you're doing and where we have discussions about the work that you're doing. So maybe you can tell everybody about Black Men Cry Too.
Thank you. First off, I want to appreciate you for finding us and even bringing us onto your platform. That means the world to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Black Men Cry Too is an invitation for men of color to unpack their hurt and share their truth. And essentially, we want them to know that it's okay that they can cry too. So we cover topics like code switching, loss, police brutality. It's a lot of heavy conversations in a sense, but we keep it, I like to think that we keep it light because we keep it so casual, so comfortable, so open, so vulnerable that it just flows so naturally. You'll see laughs throughout, but we're actually getting to the root of the perspective of being a Black man in America.
I love it. I think there's so many different layers here to tackle and to target and to discuss. What made this start? What was the influence for Black Men Cry Too?
So long story short, there's three major influences of what pushed me to get started. The first experience I ever had with men of color and mental health was in high school. When I was a freshman in high school, I lost a friend to suicide, and we were on the phone the night before, wouldn't even know what signs look like at that age. And that's something that I've carried with me for years. And that's something I've lived my life to sort of promote his legacy, but never really knew how. The second incident that happened was I was in a mutually abusive relationship. So another experience on my own of my own mental health, my partner's mental health, and how we were deteriorizing and abusing each other because we had our own internal conflicts. Right. Lastly, I did a panel where we talked about mental health, and one of my guy friends said, there's a big push around women, especially Black women, finally going to therapy and healing. What about men? Black Men Cry Too. And I was like, I'm going to use that. I don't know how, but I'm going to use that one day. And I was in a situationship with a very stoic, hood guy. And here he was breaking down and telling me everything and crying on my shoulder, but yet going back to the hood and still being feared. But I know all of your deepest, darkest secrets. So I was like, if I can get this guy to break down and basically view me as his safe space, view me as his therapist, and I have a lot of male friends where I know a lot of their situations, what can I do to bring that to the forefront to encourage more of these conversations so these men don't have to feel like it's so heavy and they have to carry it by themselves?
Right. I love that. I do feel as a society, now I'm going to get deep. I do feel as a society, but I'm a mom. I'm a mom to a Black man, right? I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, one day, hopefully a wife. And so I do understand, we create this space where we don't allow, society creates this space where we don't allow men to feel. to break down, to be weak, and it's not even a weakness, because I don't think crying is a sign of weakness. I don't think, being hurt. I actually think that's more mature to say, well, this is hurting me, this is bothering me. But we don't create that space for men of color, right? It's don't be weak. It's I'll give you something to cry about. Stop your crying. And so
man up.
Yeah, man up. It's you got to be tough. You got to take that deep breath in. Even and this podcast is primarily relationship podcast, but even women in relationships with men where they're emotionally abusive, right? And it's just like, yo, you acting like this and you acting like that. You a mama's
acting like a little bitch.
You acting like a little bitch, and it's just like, yo, like I'm not allowed to be able to voice who I am and really be who I am. So how do you create that for the people that come on your show?
So that's something that it's kind of hard when you're thinking about how to answer that. I think with me, certain tools that I've learned along the way is, and this is the most important tool that I even preach to some girls that, look, and I'm single. So when girls are asking me, how can I get my man to open up? I'm like, you want to ask the single girl? Sure, cool.
Well, I'm a relationship podcast, so I ain't in no relationship. I'm a coach.
Yeah, I like that. I'm a coach. I'm going to use that. What I say is what I believe to be a strong trait is that active listening. Like, how many times have we been told, don't listen to respond, listen to listen? And holding that is so important, because what I've learned in my experiences is, okay, if I'm paying attention or if I'm actively listening to what you're telling me, I'm learning you without you telling me directly. So if, to use an example with the situationship I was in, I did something to him that completely triggered him and he went off, like, I couldn't even piece it together. To me, it was something so light. When we made amends 2 weeks later, when he was talking about a different story, I was able to make the connection. I triggered you when I did that because it took you back to a time when you were locked up in Rikers and they treated you like this. But because I actively listened, I was able to piece it together, like, okay, noted, moving forward this way. Or if I said something to him and he took offense to it, why are you taking offense to it? So now I have to think, okay, is he taking offense because he really does try in this element and it just didn't land with me? So maybe I should use this word. Okay, so let me be big enough and say, I called you this, and what I should have said was this. I felt this way, so I called you that, but that's not what the word I should have used is. But I can only know that by active listening, paying attention, and then, of course, making them feel comfortable, being judgment-free, keeping calm body language, not tensing up, not reacting to anything that they say. There's been bombs that have been dropped in these episodes where men have basically admitted for the first time that they were molested as a child. And I just had to keep the conversation going and didn't see it coming, but I can't react to that. You're finally feeling comfortable to keep expressing. Let me listen. Let me just keep guiding and have those clicks go off in your head. So then you know what to do afterwards. Okay, I finally got it out. Let me continue this conversation elsewhere.
Right. Yeah, I think that that's so important, that we're listening, and that we're listening to learn versus we're listening to respond. And sometimes we don't give enough room to kind of make those connections for people and kind of understand, what anybody needs, let alone the needs of a man, right? So, because as women, we're very in tune with what we need. We're not very in tune sometimes with what we think our partner needs or our family member needs, because we just assume they're all right. What has been the impact on the community of men that have been on the show?
That has been something that has truly been for me. So complete transparency, I was hella nervous putting this shit out there. I was like, all these men are gonna be like, what is this girl talking about? I don't give a F. She out her effing mind. I saw such positive responses and feedback to the point where I stopped putting calls out there for people to come on the show because so many people were reaching out asking to be on the show. I have a backlog of people ready to share their story. So the response has more so been, I'm ready to tell my story and I want people to hear my story from my perspective. Now someone is finally listening to my side. Let me take it and run. So seeing that response from the men in the community has been such an honor, as well as getting feedback and updates from them. ever since I did your show, I finally talked to my mom about the situation that I brought up. I'm finally ready to let her know what happened to me at such a young age. Or me and my partner, our relationship got better since your show, because now I started to learn and pay attention. What are my love languages? How can I communicate?
I think that's amazing. I think that's just
things like that.
It's just amazing to me because, like I said, it's just amazing to me that you can create a space where men feel so comfortable and have such intense stories to tell too. You know what I mean? These are not like little light stories like, okay, you know, I fell and I lost my wallet one day. These are, you know, experiences of molestation. These are experiences of being incarcerated. These are experiences of police brutality. These are the things that we are living with, you know? So I think that's another thing too. It's not just, oh, I'm telling my story and this is one off. You know, the more you dig, you're like, wait a minute, there's people living with these stories day to day, because this is a society we're in. This is where we're living right now.
Exactly.
And they don't have a place to say it, and they're not living in a space that allows them to open up. So I think the work that you're doing is amazing, and I think that, you know, I think the more the merrier.
Right.
I think the more the merrier. The more voices you can get, the better, because Black men cry too. Do you feel men don't have safe spaces outside of I mean, besides your platform? Do you feel overall like Black men don't have safe spaces?
2 years ago, I would 100% say no. During this journey of producing the show, I'm learning of more and more of the spaces, and I'm seeing more and more spaces pop up. It seems to be like a shift finally in society, mainly done by us, which, I mean, we do have to do the work. It is our men, it is our community, it is our culture that needs the help. And if no one's going to do it for us, we got to do it ourselves. Right. And get other people to pay attention to it, which is what I do like, because in a sense it's, hey, white folks, y'all also were part of the fucking problem. Like, right. So pay attention to what they're saying, because y'all put the stigma on them. Y'all are the reason why they have a lot of these issues. So listen to them and what you guys have done. Like, learn from y'all mistakes. Y'all need to be held accountable as well. But I will say I do see more and more spaces, and I try my best to keep up with those spaces and make sure I can add them to a list of resources on the website, promote them on the page, just to continue building that community. Like you finding me, like you bringing me to your platform. Like, this is all of us collectively making sure that we can continue growing and nurturing these spaces that are now finally starting to pop up.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely think there needs to be a shift in mindset, you know, for the men and for everybody else. I think there needs to be a shift in our mindset. Even me as a mom, like I said earlier, just that shift in mindset where we can't be like, oh, well, you're a boy, you're not supposed to.
Right.
Right. And I think it starts from that young, you know, because then boys are carrying this around like a book bag, and you just throwing bricks in it. You know what I mean? And the other day, my son, I sat on his glasses by accident or something, and it was an accident. And he was upset. He was very upset because they're pretty new glasses. He was very upset. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And he got mad at me. And I was like, but I said, I'm sorry. And he was like, yeah, but I'm allowed to still be mad.
Ooh.
And I was like,
how old is he?
He's 11.
Wow.
He was like, but I'm allowed to still be mad. I was like, noted.
Heard you. Talk about red to filth. Like, damn, I get it, but still.
Yeah, he was like, I'm allowed to be mad still. I was like, noted. Go ahead and like go to your room, go hang out, go do whatever you cool down. And you know, he understood that I didn't mean it, but he still was like, you know, these are my glasses. I'm still upset. Give me a minute. And I have to learn that. And like I said, we tend to kind of like put our young men I'm talking about from when they're young, because I feel like we just continue that behavior as they get older and older and older. And I think we need to start creating spaces as young as children and allowing them to have emotions and have a healthy space and be upset and be hurt and be tired and not really be reprimanded for having feelings.
But I love how you said as well that you apologize, because I also do believe, especially, and you had mentioned earlier, you have a Jamaican mom, like when it comes to Caribbean culture, African culture, Black culture in general, with our parents, they had this whole hierarchy, patriarchy, mentality. So there was no apology from our parents for hurting our feelings, for doing something that made us feel a certain type of way, made us upset, made us embarrassed. And now that we're learning how to break those generational curses, you can look at your 11-year-old son and say, I'm sorry, I didn't do this on purpose. This was an accident. And you could even sit with the, okay, you're upset at me. I can't be mad at you for being upset at me for me doing something to you. And that's not something that we were given. I mean, I can't speak for you.
You can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
That's not something we were given. So now we're finally giving what we didn't get.
Yeah, I don't think that, them old school parents are not into saying sorry for nothing. Like, they just feel like we don't have to say sorry. Like, I remember my mom being like, stop crying, I'm gonna give you something to cry about. Like, bro, like, I'm mad. Like,
I'm already crying. You already gave me something to cry about. You just beat my ass. I'm crying. We're already here.
I got three siblings. I didn't even do nothing and you beat my ass. I got every right to cry. Like, you just beat my ass for nothing. Like,
you know, your hand ain't light. Like, this was heavy. Like, damn, there's bruises.
Like, I got beat for what they did. Like, you know what I mean? So I kind of see as a culture how we get into those behaviors and how especially they affect young men, because they have, I mean, we also got the societal norms for women, but we're talking about the men where it's like, these are what we expect of you. You know, and when it comes to emotions, it's the biggest thing that you're taught. Like, a girl cries and a boy's cry, and it's like, get up, stop crying. A girl cries, we run over and
coddle.
Yeah. And so then you're growing up with that. And then we have men who are like 30 and don't know how to express their feelings.
And or saying the last time I cried was, and I feel like this is just a trend with Black men. The last time I cried was my grandmother's funeral. What? Why? That sounds crazy. You've been holding back tears for 15 years. You sound nuts. You have to release that.
Right. But we're not taught to do that. We're not taught to allow that, to create a space for that, to even celebrate it. Because there's times that I have cried and I'm like, yo, let me cry, get this out. And then I purge and then I can move on. But now let's think about this as we talk about men. Now we're talking about men too, who have been in some fucked up situations. Yeah. Right? This is not grandma died. That's easy, not to say it's easy, but grandma die is a lot easier than like you getting beat by the police. Right? Grandma 90 years old. She was finna die. You know what I mean?
That's something you expect. You don't expect to.
But it's not living with being beat. It's not living with being molested. It's not living with, the pipeline to prison and the situations that our men are put in. You know what I mean? It's not, I've seen men in situations where they're with women who are like, I'm gonna call the cops on you if you touch me. Meanwhile, she beating his ass. So you have to understand those emotional situations where this person somewhat, in some senses, have been abused in many different ways and does not have a safe space to even verbalize it or vocalize it. What do they do, Catherine?
So it's a very heavy journey. And the one thing that, as you were saying, it's abuse. It's a lot of mental abuse. At the end of the day, it's a mental and emotional abuse that these men have been carrying. And therefore, and part of the reason why I believe me doing this platform as a, because I get asked that question, like, you're a woman and your platform is Black Men Cry Too. Yes, but here's my thing. Within our community, if you're entertaining a male and he's carrying all this weight and he's never been able to work through this weight and muddle through this weight and understand how and why he moves the way he moves, he's now bringing that into your relationship. He's now bringing that into him being a father. Like, that learned behavior and that heaviness, that weight that's still on him is now going to trickle through every aspect of his life. So now he's deteriorating any chance that he had for a different outlook because of what he's still carrying. He's bringing that to the table with him. It's like Erykah Badu, Bag Lady. It's Bag Man. We got Bag Man coming. Yes.
It's just bringing the baggage.
Just bringing all of that to you. And for me being in that situationship, I was now carrying his baggage. And my therapist told me, are you going to therapy for the both of you? Like, is he paying for your invoices? Because you keep bringing his weight here. That's not your weight to carry. And
that's a good one.
Girl, because when I heard that.
A good one. Catherine, you finna come back. We're going to have another show about that.
Look, Because I was like, it's time to take the trash out. I'm not carrying his weight.
No, I could preach right now. You're not the only woman who has been in that. I'm pretty sure I've been in that situation too. Just ain't nobody sit me down and tell me.
Exactly. So like the purpose of the platform as well is to make these men start feeling seen and heard, that then they can have that courage to, what does my next step look like? Does my next step mean I need a therapist? Does my next step mean I need to have a conversation? Does my next step mean I need to stick up for myself at my job? Does my next step mean I need to look into meditation? Does my next step mean this? Like, what is your next step? What is your healing journey? You need to start your healing journey. And that's what these men need. And we need to encourage it more. We need to support it more, encourage it more, provide tools, provide those resources. And that's what I want the space to be. That's what I want the shift in the mindset to be. Be more comfortable. It is okay. You're seeing Black women do things out of our norm. We're all changing. You guys should follow suit as well. You want to marry a Black queen, right? You want to have a amazing Black family. How are you going to do that? How are you aspiring to be a Jay-Z, a Barack Obama, a Kaepernick, or whoever else you can think of if you're not doing the steps that they took to get there?
Right.
You can't go from selling dope to making millions without anything done in between. There's no, here's your new card that's being dealt to you. No, these are the cards that we've been dealt. How are we going to flip this game? What chess move are you going to do?
Yeah.
Who are you going to use to support you? You have a tribe. You have a community. And if you don't, find a new one.
Right.
Change your environment. Stop making excuses for yourself. That's the one thing that bothers me with a lot of men, because you're making excuses because you're scared to do the work. The work is hard. The work is uncomfortable. I've been in therapy for 3 years. And even till this day, there'll be something that she makes a connection with. And I'll be like, motherfucker, I thought I got it all. How am I still finding things that need work?
Yeah.
But you have to do the work.
Yeah. I think we're all an evolution process, every last one of us. I think what we do need to talk about, I'm getting feedback. What we do need to talk about is like therapy and shifting the narrative around getting supports that we need, especially for men, and men being able to, like, I would like in a perfect world for the men on your show or any Black man listening or any man of color listening to the show to be able to say, you know what, I do need to go to therapy, and pick up the phone and make that call and do the research without some woman in your life, your mama, your child, your daughter, your girlfriend, your baby mama, like a judge, like without somebody, because that's what I would really like to see. You're saying, you know what, these are things that don't sit right with me. I have not been able to do this by myself. Let me start the process to get the work done. Let me come on the show and talk to Catherine. And then once I rip the Band-Aid off, let me kind of steer the reins in my own healing. That's what I would like to see for men of color. And then their families, their support systems, their girlfriends, their wives, their children, their jobs, support them in doing that work.
I 100% agreed. And made me think of, so I had a guest come on the show this season. He's episode 6, Peter, and he talked about being incarcerated. He first decided to write me a piece and to have that be on the website. And then after he put the piece up there and got good feedback, then he had told me, I'm ready to get on the show and speak. So even if you have to do a baby step first, and my show doesn't have to be the end all be all for your first step, do a first step, see the response you get. Go to somebody that you feel comfortable with if you're afraid to like do it alone in a sense, or if you need to ask for help. Ask for help. Ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. We need to be more comfortable asking for help. We're not, because we're never given the help. That's always been how it has
Or
been.
it's the excuse of, I don't know how. I don't know where to look. I don't know how to get help. I don't know what to do. And I think that's the part where I'm like, there's Google. You know what I mean? The same way you find anything else you want.
Exactly.
You know, the same way you figure out where you got to go is the same journey that you're going to take in your own healing process and working on yourself, in my opinion, you know. But I do really think even with all of that, it takes a lot for a man to sit and reflect
Right.
on his life and his journey and his experiences and wrap his head around what those experiences have done to him or made him feel, or whatever the case may be. And I think that's the hardest part too, like admitting that there's something wrong. I think once we find out that there's something wrong, like you said, I could write a little bit and I got to see how it feels, but it's almost like you're pulling back the layers, like people say, of an onion. And for men, that's really, really hard. That's really, really hard. Us women, we're like, you know what, I'll go ahead and tell because it's okay to be vulnerable. But I think that vulnerability of men is what stops a lot of men from being able to tell their story.
It's because vulnerability isn't celebrated. And even for myself, and I think what made this journey beautiful for me is my mother was never granted vulnerability. So therefore, I wasn't granted vulnerability within my mother. And that's something that me and her, thankfully, were able to work on while she was still alive. And that changed our relationship tremendously. Not to put too much of our business out there, but we had sat down with a therapist at one point, and I didn't even realize I was carrying this for years. When I had told her that my best friend committed suicide, her initial response to me wasn't comforting. Right. It stung, and it wasn't something that I kept replaying in my head. But when we were having that conversation, it just came out. And to see her response, and she was like, I didn't even realize I responded to you that way.
Right.
She was like, I needed to hear that. Like, I can understand now why there could be that little like friction or that little halt with you not feeling comfortable saying certain things or coming to me because of something I did when you were 13, 14. Right. We carry that and we remember that. So if we start changing that now and we start allowing it and showing that it's okay, that will just continue that like domino effect. Okay, so I was vulnerable with somebody. They didn't make me feel weird. I can be vulnerable with somebody else. I can be vulnerable with a stranger. I can be vulnerable with a therapist.
Yeah. So how do you think families can be more supportive? What can they like consciously do day to day to be more supportive to whoever they have in their life that may, or may not be? Because I feel like now that we're talking about this, Catherine, I'm like, I know this is like, the show's called Black Men Cry Too, but I feel like there's probably a lot. I don't think this should be, I don't know, in my head right now, I'm like, this can't be particular just to somebody who's been in a bad experience and is carrying a weight. Why it just can't be like, let's just be nice to everybody. No, because you don't know what somebody's been through. Let's really think about this. You don't know what somebody's been through. When you meet a person, you don't know, like my dad is an older man. He's 75 years old. He'd been through a lot of things. He was shot at a party one night. Like, you understand what I'm saying? So you don't know the experiences that somebody's had where you're like, okay, let me be nice to them. Let me be warm. Let me be welcoming. I just feel like it needs to be like all the time, not just like, oh, well, he's been locked up before, so we should be extra nice to him. Like, no, you don't know what experiences somebody else may have had. And so I feel like we almost got to do this with everybody, not just the people who may be carrying a weight, because you don't know what weight they're carrying.
That's something that I had even at my current role in my job, we were gearing up for a presentation of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's literally that same notion as well, because you don't know, maybe, so I lost my mother 2 weeks ago. And I had that conversation with my manager. Like, it was so interesting how we were planning out this talk about how you don't know what someone's going through that day. Maybe it's a heavy day for them. Maybe it's my mother's anniversary and now my mood is off. So I may be short with somebody and they may be reaching out to me, but because my responses seem short, they think I'm a bitch. No, I'm not a bitch. I'm just having a heavy day. One thing that we talked about within our team is, how can we do check-ins so we understand where someone is for the day? Hey guys, how's your energy today?
Right.
My energy's a little low. I'm feeling a bit heavy. I'm missing my mom a lot. So today is going to be a rough day. Okay. So how can we be supportive of Catherine today? We can wait to ask her certain questions. We can just quickly ask her a question, or we can send things to make her smile or give her a space to talk about her mom. How can we like embody that? What's your energy today? One of my best friends, she used to just text me long ass paragraphs about whatever the fuck was going on with her for that day. And I had to correct her like, hey, your problems in your life are always going to be important to me because you're my best friend. However, with what I'm going through right now, it also triggers me. Can you just do a check-in and see where I'm at before you do an unload? Hey, can I vent to you right now? Hey, where's your energy at? Can I give you a quick ring? I need a quick ear. Even with this, I ask my friends, if this is too heavy for you, please let me know. Please stop me. I'm not trying to further trigger you or upset you or have you feel a certain type of way. So I believe like even within families, within friendships, we can do check-ins. If you notice someone is a little off, instead of being like, what is wrong with you? What's your problem? What you got an attitude for? We always resort to that first. How can we be like, how's your energy right now?
Right.
Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to talk about it? It's okay to talk about it. Do you not want to talk about it? Do you want to wait to talk about it? Because we also can't force people. What if I'm still processing what made me angry? It could have been something at your child's school. Something might have made him angry and he doesn't know how to bring it up to you as yet because he's still processing.
Yeah. I definitely feel like I did not learn that, Catherine, until a couple years ago.
Girl, me neither.
I did not learn that. I did not learn how to be like, okay, so I learned about myself, and this is totally off topic, but that I'm an empath. And I take on a lot. I take on people's, like I can be okay. And then you send me a text message and depending what it is, it will shift my whole mood. My stomach will start hurting. My anxiety will act up. I'm nervous for you. Like that's just the nature of who I am. And so I've learned recently, like there's certain things that I'm just like, I can't take this on right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's not that I don't love my friends. It's not that I don't love my family. It's not that I don't, don't care. It's just there's certain things that I know, depending on the space that I'm in, I can't take this on. And nobody taught me that. I had to learn the hard way when I was sitting in here like bugging out and having anxiety and my stomach hurts and I'm nervous and is everything okay? And just, constantly being there for everybody and then feeling like, oh my God, you know what I mean? I might not physically be there, but emotionally this is draining for me. And I don't have that in me today to do. So I think it's really important that we think of, ourselves and we think of our partners and we think of our family members and being courteous in what we're sharing and how we're sharing it. And, trying to be good energy. If somebody is like dealing with something, just being like, you know what, I'm either going to let them deal or I'm going to come in and share some light.
Exactly. But to your point as well, it's also because I feel like the same thing you learned is something that I had to learn, plus the removal of feeling guilty. It's okay if you're not ready in that moment to show up for someone if you're not fully ready, because that's an exchange of energy. You can tell someone, hey, I'm going to come back to this in the morning. Yeah. Hey, give me a few and I'm going to come back to this. But acknowledge them. I receive it. Please give me a second and I'm coming back to it. And then doing the actual follow-up, coming back to it like, okay, I'm back. I'm here. Here's my response. Here's my answer. Here's our next step. Here's our next plan. And being okay. It's okay to protect your space, especially if you're giving your space to other people.
Yeah. That's a hard lesson to learn because the guilt be killing me too. Not anymore. Now I'm fine. But at the time I would feel so guilty. Like I have to. And then, you have to learn that like you can't be everything all the time. And I think also speaking of going back to Black Men Cry Too, it's just that sometimes when you have a Black man in your life, sometimes there's the mom, there's the patriot, there's the wife. And you're just thinking, well, why can't I be that person? I think that's the next thing we need to talk about, Catherine, because there's a lot of women that are like, well, why can't he come to me? Whether it's the mother, right? Everybody's mother feels like, why didn't you come to me? Like, bro, I didn't come to you because last time I came to you, you threw a broom at me. Or a wife going, well, he doesn't need anybody else. He has me. And I think sometimes as women, we also need to be, and sisters and so, like, we need to also be reflective of like, did you create a space? Everybody says this, like, if you need something, come talk to me. And then they act crazy. And so, I think as women, we sometimes got to like check ourselves too. and think about this, right? One, you can't always be that person. You might be part of the problem, to be totally honest with you. You might be. It could be. Or the reality is there's a lot of people who don't feel safe, even with the titles of people that are in their life.
100%. And it is okay also to be that person that might not have made them feel safe. If they need to step outside to find that person to feel safe, all that person is doing is being a soundboard until they feel comfortable enough being prepared to have that conversation with whomever it could be, the mom, the wife, whatever.
No, I totally agree, because I feel like sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger who has no emotional connection, no leverage, no volatile, comeback, or is not coming from any particular place. They're just listening, right? Like when you do your show and somebody comes and tells a story, they're just telling you their story, opposed to that person in your life who might be like, that didn't happen, or why are you acting like that, or I don't remember this, or making you feel. And so we need to realize sometimes that we might just not be their person.
Right. And that's okay.
And that's okay. Let them find that because I know a lot of people that will fight that and be like, I don't understand why you just didn't come and talk to me. And it's just like, I can't.
Because it's an insecurity reflected on them. They realize they didn't provide that space for someone that they care and love, which is okay. Because like you had said before, that's not something you were taught. That's not something I was taught either. We weren't taught these terms. We weren't taught these things. So now that we're learning and unlearning at the same time, this is helping so we can do that moving forward. So we can change that shift within any of those relationships. And it's okay to still be a work in progress. We're going to be a work in progress until we're done.
But I feel like human beings are a work in progress. I always say this on my show, whatever doesn't grow is dead. So I feel like we're constantly growing, and we should constantly be growing. And I feel like we need to leave space for people to sometimes grow outside of us, not in a negative way, but just allowing them the freedom to say, well, you know what, I couldn't talk to you because I knew you would get upset. So I'd rather talk to so-and-so. It's not a bad thing for you to love someone and be passionate and want to help them. But sometimes the best way for you to help them is to let them get the help they need. And it's not always in us to do. You know what I mean? I think we tend to want to fix things like, why you didn't come to me and I would have helped you. And sometimes it's just like, this wasn't for you to do.
Right. This wasn't your baggage to carry.
But again, these are things that I didn't learn till later on in life. This is not things that I learned, like somebody taught me, or conversations that I had. And I think that's why podcasts like yours are so valuable, because, we are at this pivotal point where there is a shift, right? Where we have to start creating healthy spaces, where we have to start having discussions like this, where we have to start looking at our children and our partners and realizing, like, you know what, maybe we've been doing it wrong.
Or not even, I was only going to say maybe not doing it wrong, but maybe we could do this better.
Yeah, I think better, but I definitely think that those, like you said, those ancestral, like, don't cry, don't do this, don't do that.
Yeah, they did that wrong.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you got to think about it. Like, not having a man cry has a lot to go back to that testosterone and all that. But then think about like slavery. Yeah. Think about like black men getting beat and getting raped and all these things happening. And you're just like, yo, man up. You can't cry. You can't be weak. You can't. And then we have
Master C.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And just hold on to that masculinity, and to the point now where we've almost made it like
the societal norm.
And so now there's people walking around with these heavy book bags, like you said, of just experiences that are, and there's no safe space.
Exactly.
To purge. That's sad. I mean, there's a safe space that you're creating. It's just sad that, it's not normal.
Right. And I was like, not to make it funny, but I'm like, just think of you being backed up and you haven't like pooped in a week. That's how you have been carrying this dead weight. You're backed up. You are constipated with your
Yeah. And I want everybody to be healthy and happy, like their best self. You know what I mean? Like it's never all going to be perfect, but just your best self. And I feel like we can't change some of the things in society. It is what it is. We're working through that, but we could change how we carry the weight of that book bag. You know, we could change the way we look at the people we love and support. We could change the way we look at mental health. You know, and creating safe spaces for people of color to not feel like there's something wrong with going to therapy. Like, I don't even understand that. Like, if your stomach hurt, you go to the stomach doctor. And if your foot hurt, you go to the foot doctor. If your soul hurts, then you need to go to the soul doctor.
Oh, I like that. The soul doctor.
That's what it is. It's because it's not like it's not you're fixing you. They just kind of help and guide you with it. You know what I mean? But if your soul hurts, you go to the soul doctor. And I think that it's okay. And we need to create a space where that is okay, especially in the Black and Brown community, where all, you know, by the time we talk about mental health in the Black and Brown community, somebody already is like, you know what I mean? It's this extreme. It's never just like I'm dealing with a lot.
And the part that also kills me with our community being so anti-therapy in the beginning is, and I'm not trying to make light of nobody or anything, but white people will have their children in therapy at the age of 6 because they have a behavioral disorder or they have too much energy. Kids have been in therapy since like 13. If you compare, and I hate doing this, but we have to be realistic, compare a 13-year-old white child's experience to a Black 13-year-old child's experience. The Black child probably went through 5 times more detrimental shit, mainly based off of society as well, than the white child. Why wouldn't we need therapy?
I hate to be racist, but you do know what I do for a living. First of all, that kid didn't even need to be in therapy. They just need to pop out. That's
a good ass whooping.
That's what that kid needed. That kid don't have too much energy. Just some discipline would have took care of that. But also, when you think about trauma, and you think about a child that, you know, they run around too much and they're cursing back at their mom is in therapy versus a kid who is dealing with poverty, who is dealing with, again, because of the population that I work with, I'm telling you that the pipeline to prison is real, that the numbers of Black and Brown students that are placed in special education is all over the country and all over the world is exceptionally high, and it is intentional, without diagnosis, by the way. When you think about living in neighborhoods where, I don't know, but I've seen people die outside the window. You know, when you think of the things that child has been through by the time they are 13 years old, I think about myself. There was a point in my life where I said, I'm not going to any more funerals. And I was only like 20 something years old. And I was like, I've been to way too many funerals for somebody my age. I was probably like 22 years old. And I was like, I'm tired of wearing this black dress. I have been to way too many funerals. Some people hadn't been to a funeral in their whole life at that point. And at that point, I had been to more than I could count.
One of my coworkers, he was 30-something years old, white male, who said he's only experienced death once in his life. I said, pardon?
Yes. And it's true. It's true. It's true. In the Black community, we go to more funerals. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, in my whole entire life, I'm 42 years old. I've been to more funerals than I have weddings. I have gotten dressed in a black dress. At one point, I asked my siblings, I was like, I'm not going anymore. I don't want to go anymore. Like, I remember one time, it was a span of weeks. I was like, yo, every weekend we go to a funeral. I don't want to go anymore. I don't want to go. I don't want to remember people. But think of the trauma that has to those children.
Think of 2020 alone. The year alone was so traumatic to Black and Brown folks. What? We need therapy more than anyone right now.
And the reality is that we don't, it's not something that we talk about. It's not something that we are open to as a society in some cases, because even as an educator, when I'm like, all right, a student needs support, the parents are like reluctant in some cases. It is not something people willingly say, you know what, I'm struggling with something, let me go. It's more of we had an intervention and you need to go. It's not, let me pick up the phone. My job has a program. This organization has a program. Let me just see, you know, and I think that that's where the narrative needs to change, so that people can get the help that they need. right? Not just as, and I think Black men cry too, but I'm also thinking about those children. What happens when those kids' dads pass away and they're not going to therapy, right? Now we're growing up a young man who's going to deal with that baggage.
Look, because I dealt with that over the summer, dealing with a dude whose father had passed away 7 years prior, and still seeing him suffer through dealing with that because he never properly dealt with it. And not only did he not properly deal with it, he never even admitted that he didn't properly deal with it. It wasn't until he saw that I lost my mother that I had asked him straight up, because I was like, let me see how he's going to respond to this. I said, what was your experience like? How did you deal with it? And then when he gave his response, and he literally said, I have not been the same since. I was holding on to anger. I was angry all the time. I was using drugs. I was going to partying. I was this and I was that. And I'm reading it like, you think much has changed? You're still dealing with it because you've never dealt with it. And that's another problem that we have too when we think about grief in our community. We don't deal with our trauma. We don't deal with grief. We don't deal with mourning, even if it's mourning a relationship. We don't deal with it. We just have to keep being resilient, keep on trucking on, that we just keep adding on to it.
What happens is, especially I see it even more in men than in women. What happens is I'll just kind of find something to pacify that pain that I'm feeling. And so hence I'll start, with the women, I'll start with the drugs, I'll start with I'm not going to say it's all bad. I'll start overworking. I'll start finding other things to occupy my time to channel that energy so that I'm not focusing on
my pain.
Right. Which I understand to some extent, but then you never actually deal with the pain. So it's still there. And now you're just taking it into other facets of your life. And so that's why your platform is so important. Honestly, that's why this is so important. And this conversation is so important, because I think it's reflective now. Like if you're listening to this podcast right now and this is you, no, I'm serious. I always say this in my show, no judgment zone. Tag somebody who you know. I'm serious. Tag somebody who you know is like, they need to hear this. And then tag Black Men Cry Too, and let them go and look at the visual. Because I feel like I love you, Catherine, and I love watching you like this, and we're going to air you like this. But your visual is badass. I'll give you that. Your visual is badass. I'm like,
I appreciate that.
Like, where the hell she at? I need to get there, because I'm like, the visual is badass. I think watching it and seeing the faces of the people, because I watched it. I know you're like streaming, but I actually watched the visual. I think watching it and seeing people's faces and emotion and hearing their voice is so powerful. It's so powerful.
And that was done purposely. And I'm so appreciative that you caught on to that. And that's something that I have spoken about. Like, I debated it just being a podcast, and I have moved it to streaming, people on the go. But the reason why I made it a video platform, a digital web series, is look at these men, look at the difference in these men. One of these men is going to connect with you. One of these men are going to look like you, sound like you, talk like you, from the same neighborhood as you. You're going to see you on that screen. Watch you on that screen sitting next to a Black woman having these conversations, and how effortlessly it is to have those conversations. Even if it appears maybe somebody may look like they're a little nervous, they're still talking through it. Right. They're still working through it. And that's the reason why I was like, let me make this visual. I need people to see. And that's why it's on a couch. Let me make it a comfortable setting.
I mean, you got me with the setting. I was like, this is not it. It's very well. I'm a very big production person. Very big production person. So yeah, no, your show, this is totally irrelevant, but your show is very, very well put together, and your visual is absolutely perfect. And once we get off the air, I'm gonna find out, because like, it's dope. It's definitely dope, but I think for the content that you produce, it brings it to life even better. Like if we was just audio, it would be good, but watching the people in real life, in the environment that they're in, with no distractions, makes it so much more real. And I think that there's definitely a value in that. Not to shock anyone, but you can connect so much more with each and every one of those people. So kudos to you. Like, well done on that. Whoever made that decision, that was a hell of a decision to make, because it was definitely worth it. Yeah, it was definitely worth it. It's well shot and it's well put together.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for being here. I hope that this sparks some conversation. I hope it makes people go and listen to Black Men Cry Too. Where can everybody find you?
You can find us on YouTube as well as Instagram at Black Men Cry Too, and that's TOO. The website is also blackmencry2.com. You can find me personally at Retro Barbie 92. Yes, that's my tag name. I'm 100% unapologetic. I'm authentic AF. It is what it is. You're going to see me being righteous and ratchet at the same time.
I mean, I'm here for it.
Look, representation matters. It is what it is. I'm not code switching for nobody no more. Okay. I drink my Hennessy and I talk about mental health.
I feel like that's what we need, though. That's what we need. That's what my show does. That's what your show does. I think we need more of, like, it's okay to live in your space and live in your truth, and let's celebrate that. You know, I think when we hide parts of it, that's when everybody's faking it.
And then you lose who you actually are. Like, if I ask you, who are you? You're not even going to be able to give me a real answer because you don't even know who you are anymore.
Right. So I'm here for it. Let's do it. Thank you so much, Catherine, for being on Say It Loud and in the hot seat. Everybody go check out Black Men Cry Too. Check out you can listen to it on the go ahead, but you got to check out the visual. You have to check out the visual. If you are somebody who feels that you need to reach out to Black Men Cry Too, please do that. If you are a woman who supports and loves a Black man, a mother, a girlfriend, sister, aunt, partner, whatever the case may be, please use this as an opportunity to reflect. Sometimes we're so busy looking at everybody else that we don't take the time to look at ourselves and what we contribute to the very people that we love. So use this as an opportunity to say, what can I do better? How can I listen better? How can I create a safe space? How can I support somebody else's safe space, even if not with me, right? And then the last thing is, you know, when Jace is mad and he's like, Mom, I have a right to be mad. Sometimes you just gotta, I had to just be like, noted. That's exactly what I said. Because sometimes you have to let people feel, you have to let them think, no matter how small they are, or how important or not important you think it is. And so let's work as mothers, right? To start the work from now with our sons, so that later on, the world is already hard enough, as far as I'm concerned, for a Black man, for any man, for all of us, but definitely for the Black man. And so let's try to make it a little bit easier. Starting with the way we raise our sons, starting with the ways we treat our dads, starting with the way we take care of our husbands and our men and our partners. Let's do it like that, because we do have a vested interest in this. We definitely do. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'll be right back.
This is for all the ladies.
Ladies, pack your hoe bag.
Who you calling a hoe?
Pour up a drink and start feeling yourself.
That's a little kinky.
Karen Hill is now live on Say It Loud Radio, streaming 24/7 across all platforms and live
24/7.
Yes, live on SayItLoud.com.
Lock it in.
Lock right here.
This is our Dropping Gems section of the segment of the show. Thank you so much for Catherine. Thank you so much, Catherine. And Black Men Cry Too for sharing time and space and energy with us. In this particular segment, I always drop a gem on you. And for our gem this week, it's pretty simple. It is really pretty simple. If, I don't want to say just a Black man, any man, particularly, but especially the men of color or minority men, we need to create safe spaces, and not just, you know, with therapists or guidance or counselors, but in our homes, with our children, with our partners, with our brothers, with our uncles, with our fathers, that we allow them to feel, that we allow them to, you know, have a space to process not just what happens outside of the house, but what happens inside of the house, and understanding that sometimes the weight of the world is heavy, especially now in the times of what we're dealing with culture and racism and classist and sexism and all of these isms and things that, you know, women deal with too. But for this particular show, we're talking about men and creating that space for them, creating a space where a man could be like, this is hard, creating a space where a man can say, I am tired, and you're allowed to be tired, or I feel weak, and you're allowed to be weak, not forever, just in this moment, and understanding that and respecting that and knowing how to love somebody in those situations and allowing them to be and feel those situations. We expect so much sometimes of our men. You know, and yes, they are strong, and yes, they endure a lot, and yes, they got to keep going, and I'm all for that. But I also know there's times where we are tired, where they are weak, where they need you to let them process and hear and feel and think and, you know, go through whatever it is that they have to, because it's tough. This is a tough world that we live in, especially for a man of color, and providing that space at home may be the only space, because outside on the street, I can't do that. You know what I mean? At work, I can't do that. On the block, I can't do that. And so really making home a place where it is safe to be able to say, like, you know what, this is hard. I'm tired. I'm stressed. I'm overworked. I'm underlooked. You know, I'm overlooked. You know what I mean? And really understanding, especially from a woman's perspective, of how we can be a support system in those cases, right? And how we can love the people in our families and the men around us in ways that is healthy for them and be what they need when they need that. And yes, us women need that too. But again, for the sake of this show, we're talking about the sake of the men. And then for the mothers out there who are raising sons, really thinking about how we're raising our sons and what we're teaching them about being strong and about having a voice and about telling their stories or discussing what they feel and creating healthy space to do that. You know, and I don't think that it's a weakness to be able to express what it is that you're feeling. I think that we need to teach that, and that we need to understand that, so that we could be a support system even to our children and what they deal with at school and what they deal with outside, and understanding their position and respecting their feelings for whatever it is that they're feeling. So again, shout out to Black Men Cry Too. I think that the organization is great. I think what the work Catherine is doing is fucking amazing. And I think that we really need to do more of that work. We need to do it in schools. We need to do it at home. We really need to give voice where the voice needs to be heard and create safe spaces. So shout out to y'all. I love y'all. And we'll be working together again. So I'm so excited about that. In the meantime, check out Manscaped to get all your manscaping products. Who doesn't love a man that is nicely scaped? Check them out. Use my code LOUD for 20% off. Check out Female Rituals for your yoni steam. Check out SHE.E Orgasms for your supplements, and of course Sweet Vibrations for all your toys. And if you haven't already, please go check out Say It's Sexy. That is my curated lingerie line that just empowers you to live out loud. Go ahead and check that out at sayitsexy.com. I love you guys. It's been a hell of a couple of weeks for me, to be totally honest with you. I am growing and healing. And I appreciate you all. So happy Friday. Enjoy. And I'll holla at y'all next week. Let's go, go, go.
You know already who's in this It's Karen Hill. Live. All the way live. The party ain't over. From the Say It Loud Radio Show.